Do whatever you want.
Oh, wait. Travis,
I have it.
do you hear that?
Do I hear what?
In the distance. Oh,
In the distant future?
there it is. The call of the wild.
The wild.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of Really, Really Badly Podcast. This one is entitled Instant Gratification, something that you all may have heard of, or maybe not. Today, we're just going to open up the topic as a whole. We're a little out of our element, dealing with a lot of big concepts and things that we don't totally understand, but I think that instant gratification is important to talk about, especially for our millennial generation. So Travis, I'm interested to hear what you have to, what your research has yielded, and I definitely found a lot of stuff that will keep me thinking for a long time. So thank you so much for joining us, to our listeners, and hope you really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my harvest was scarce, Brandon, so we'll see what happens. The fields of research were empty. I was picking the bare stalks of grapeless vines.
The trees.
I don't know anything about farming.
Much like this metaphor, the harvest was scarce.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to do this one. Side note to everyone out there, as usual, thank you for listening. Please hit us up with any questions, comments, anything you've got. We have gotten a few, which we're probably going to record a second episode today addressing some of the email responses that we've gotten, which is super cool. And we always appreciate that subscription. Share it with some people. Leave a comment, a rating, good stuff like that.
Yeah, all the good stuff.
All right.
Let's get started.
So, instant gratification.
Yes. Had you heard of this term before?
I mean, yeah, more in terms of like delayed gratification, talking about like the like characteristic, I guess, of being able to delay gratification.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly in terms of investing from like business classes. It's kind of where I've encountered it.
See, I can't figure out if it's a part of people's vocabulary now. Like if I were to say to just your average person on the street, or maybe your average millennial, if I were to talk to them about instant gratification or delayed gratification, like would they know what I'm talking about?
What's that?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It's exactly how the average millennial
That's
would
not
respond.
what I really think of millennials, I promise.
Which is our target audience, so maybe it's best we don't.
No, I just, sorry.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think it's a relatively self-explanatory phrase. So I think from that perspective, people would get what you're talking about, but I don't know if it's something people have thought about in terms of how it relates to their own lives, I guess.
Yeah, or on a day-to-day basis sort of thing.
Yeah, because I guess I haven't really had like a lot of when you say is it part of people's vocabulary, I guess I haven't really had too many conversations about it.
Yeah, maybe it's not a part of people's vocabulary, but I think people maybe at least know what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Well, either way, I kind of wanted to have I wanted to talk about it because I think it should be a part of people's vocabulary, and I think that people should think about it pretty regularly because I think it, in the culture, the Western culture, I think it's like a big part of our lives, whether we realize it or not, you know? Yeah. So, anyway.
Well, I think what's interesting about this one, too, is it's a good one to be doing right now, especially after our episodes on goals and our episode on gratitude. So last week's and then a few weeks ago.
Right.
I think there are certain ways that those topics relate to this one. So I'm glad we've talked about that before we're getting into this a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, and I feel like we'll be talking about instant gratification in future ones. So kind of a good concept to set up, I guess.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Anyways, so what is it? I guess we could just kind of jump in there. Yeah, the definition that I found that I really liked was instant gratification is a desire to experience pleasure or fulfillment without delay or detriment. So basically, when you want it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my definition of instant gratification.
Okay.
Add 30 seconds.
Boom.
When I think of the term, I just immediately think of that button on your microwave. That's add 30. It's just funny because
love it.
You've already got a microwave that's pretty quick, but I will probably never type 100 start. I just 30 seconds. So, I mean, it doesn't get, it's like instant gratification on top of instant gratification.
Yeah, totally.
But
side note, have you ever typed in 99 on a microwave?
I never have.
Dude, it's magical. Because
does it just tell you like
a minute
don't
29? Or no, that's not right. A minute 39.
Oh, 99 seconds?
Yeah, 99 seconds.
That's
no one thinks of typing in like 80 seconds because that's over a minute. You would type in a minute 20. Anyway.
Yeah, but 90, that's such a minute 29 seconds is such an odd number. It's got to be rounded.
I know.
Like you got to do like either 15 or 30, 25.
It's just something that blows my mind that no one ever types in 85 seconds on their microwave. They type in 115. Anyway, my math's probably completely off with that. I think it is.
Have you ever typed in like an hour 20 on a microwave? Blows my mind that people don't do it, man. It's like the fastest way to burn cookies, way faster than putting it in the oven and burning them. You don't even have to forget that they're in the microwave because it's already burnt.
So instantly gratifying to burn my cookies so quick.
And that's actually not true because I think it'd probably take about that long to bake cookies. So
yeah, that's true.
Anyhow.
Okay, sorry.
Let's get back to topic here.
Get back to topic. Yeah, well, you're totally right. Like, I love that you brought up microwaves because that's exactly what I think, instant gratification is. Like, we live in this very microwave world, 100, 200 years ago. To make a hot meal would require so much work, so much preparation and planning, and trying to get it all warm, if you had heating, or if, you'd have to make it over a fire or whatever, and now we have these microwaves that, boom, I have food. And so you don't really need to go through all the work in order to get that gratification, that pleasure out of having a meal. Lots of other things I thought of that kind of exemplify the culture we live in of instant gratification. We have light switches, we have hot water we talked about in our last episode.
And one thing to I think just to add right quick here is a lot of this stuff we'll be talking about is, I mean, it's amazing, right? Like these are all good things, I think, for the most part. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that we have so many areas of instant gratification. What I think we'll probably get into is that can bleed over into areas of your life that you maybe should not have instant gratification in, where delayed gratification is more what you should be looking for. Because again, it's almost like, the curse of the blessing, sort of a thing. We talked about in a few episodes, I can't remember which episode it was on, but we were talking about, I'll mention this, I'm sure, down the road more, because I think about it all the time, but I think of that hierarchy of needs triangle, and how a lot of what we're talking about, because of the amazing world we live in, has to do with that higher level of self-actualization. And so when we talk about some of the consequences to these things or some of the downsides. They're not necessarily downsides in the sense of being like worse or better off physically, but they're more like these deep sort of soul level damages or downsides or whatever it is that we're talking about.
Totally.
So I would just throw that in there to be like, especially after last week's episode where we're like, everything we have is amazing. And then we're not trying to say like everything sucks and we shouldn't have microwaves and we shouldn't have hot water and it's causing us to become terrible people. Not at all. I think, I mean, unless you're going to start saying that, which is fine. We can have a discussion.
No.
But
not going there.
Yeah. So I just think that's a quick thing to note. And then also we both said this before we got on the call, but feel pretty unqualified to talk about delaying gratification.
Yeah.
Which we'll also get into.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I want to start working on it for sure, or keep working on it or whatever. Yeah, and I wanted to research what science and psychologists have to say about it, especially in today's world, you know. But yeah, so don't take our word as gospel. We're kind of figuring it all out as well.
Oh, yeah. No, totally.
Yeah, glad you said that.
So where'd your research take you first with this?
Well, first it took me to, I think you mentioned this before we got started today. It took me to a TED Talk. Her name was Sylvia Barcelos, and she talked about the marshmallow test, which is a study that was conducted on smaller children. And the basic experiment was they had a bunch of kids that they would bring in one at a time, and they would say, all right, Timmy, you can have one marshmallow, or here's a marshmallow, and I'm going to leave the room for 10 minutes or something like that, and when I come back, if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I'll give you a second marshmallow, and you can have both of those. And so they would... But they wouldn't forbid the kid from eating the marshmallow while they were gone, but they would just set up that if you eat the marshmallow while I'm gone, you won't be getting a second one. And so they would leave for 10 minutes, and they would have like a camera in the room, and the kids would walk up to the marshmallow, they would sniff the marshmallow, they would lick the marshmallow, they'd eat like a little tip of the marshmallow in hopes that like that didn't count. But 2/3 of the kids, sure enough, ate the marshmallow. Even though they had double the potential reward, just 10 minutes away. And it was just kind of I guess this was a big experiment that brought to light the difficulty that young kids have with delaying gratification, and kind of shed light on how most people nowadays are over-optimistic about their own self-control ability. It also tied a lot of benefits, long-term benefits in terms of success and success and good things potentially happening in people's lives. They connected a lot of success to the ability to delay gratification. Yeah,
and just so we can give proper credit, the experiment was done by a guy, Walter Mischel, I think, Mischel, and it was, like you said, it was in sometime in the 1960s is when it started. They published the study in 1972 from, I believe, Stanford, but because they did this test with kids at a small, or at this younger age, and then they later on came back to kind of see where those same kids were in life with different areas. Like you said, they tied it to different successes and SAT scores for the kids who were able to restrain themselves were higher. So those were kind of the conclusions that they drew. There has been some criticism with the study that I read on, but the general conclusions are pretty widely accepted, or at least it brought this question into the public mind. One thing that I did read that I thought was really interesting was a follow-up study along the lines of this same thing, but they wanted to add another element in here, which was trust. So what they did is they had two different sets of kids, and they pre-exposed some kids to trust and some kids to distrust, I guess. So basically what they did is they said, this one group of kids, they said, here's a box of crayons. In 10 minutes, I'm going to bring a better box of crayons. And then they would follow up with that and bring them a better box of crayons, whatever. Another group of kids where they said they would do the same thing, but they never showed up, didn't follow through with it. And then after they had those two kind of predisposed groups, then they did the marshmallow task with those groups to see if some level of understanding of trust came into play with that. Because again, with the original marshmallow experiment, there's just a lot of factors outside of that you just don't know. Like, how much do these kids trust and respect authority? Like,
how do they think the world works?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so then they did it again and tried to see what the results of that would be. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things they drew from this is, there's, and this gets a little bit technical for me. So if I mess something up big time and someone out there is a neuroscientist, please correct us and we will address it. But they're basically talking about this two parts of your brain, your limbic system and your prefrontal cortex. Being limbic system is impulses, emotions, prefrontal cortex being cognition, and how they can balance each other out, I guess, and how some people let the limbic system take over easier than others.
Yeah. I actually did quite a bit of research on the limbic system. If
Dude,
take a second to chime in here.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So basically the limbic system, like you said, is impulses, wants, needs, and I kind of wanted to understand the reward system, the brain's reward system a little bit better. This gets a little technical, but bear with me. Survival for most animal species depends on maximizing contact with beneficial stimuli and minimizing contact with harmful stimuli. So reward cognition, when an animal chooses to make a safe move or chooses a cave that's protects them well, the brain rewards that basically. When survival or reproduction is successful, then the brain rewards that with pleasure chemicals and things like that. It increases the likelihood of survival and reproduction, and it causes them to learn and figure out what the best customary behavior is. And it triggers, for animals that we know have emotion, it triggers positive emotions. So if you're just looking at humans as animals as well, we have that kind of primal way about us too, is that the brain is helping us, it's rewarding us for good decisions we make, and it's a way of kind of rewarding us for making good decisions, basically. But the way that this can get hijacked, dopamine, the pleasure chemical, can get hijacked by a lot of different things, especially in our modern world. Obviously, things like drugs, alcohol, can really flood the system with dopamine and really overpower.
Stimulate. Oh.
Yeah, it overstimulates the brain, but it also overpowers some of our other needs, right? People don't go to work, people forget to eat, forget to take care of things that they're responsible for because the dopamine is already there, right? It's already flooding the system, so why would I need to go? I already feel rewarded for what I'm doing. It causes people to forget other parts of their lives. I think what we're more talking about, like you said, that kind of hierarchy of needs, what we're talking about is kind of the way that instant gratification in today's modern world can keep us from following our goals, our motivations, our dreams, right? And so anyways, we receive shots of dopamine when we're experiencing pleasure, and we kind of need to learn to work with our reward system correctly instead of incorrectly.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I noticed was interesting. Just when I was doing some research, it was very apparent to me that people value the characteristic or the ability to delay gratification. Because as soon as I started, once I wanted to get kind of out of the, research, this marshmallow experiment world, and into more like, okay, how does this play out in our lives? What do we do about it? Can we change this once we're 25, 26? Or is this something that you got to learn really young? And it became very apparent that it's important to people because one of the top, Google hits you'll get if you just type in delayed gratification is articles titled "How do I teach my kid delayed gratification?" or 5 steps to become, better at delaying your gratification. And I just thought that was interesting because so much of what I was finding out there was focused on teaching children delayed gratification, talking about kids. Again, this marshmallow experiment was done with kids. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it just made me wonder, well, do adults even have a basic understanding or practice of delayed gratification? Mm-hmm. Is it something you have to learn to kind of become a successful adult? Or, because like you said at the beginning, I don't even really think this is a part of people's vocabulary necessarily. So why are we just limiting this to how do I teach my kids, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a little bit interesting.
That is interesting.
And so I would kind of ask the question, why is this important? Mm-hmm. Especially for us, like now, mm-hmm. in our generation.
Yeah. If I was to take a crack at that, I think it's very important because we are getting so many new so much new technology that makes things so easy for us. There's a flood of entertainment and information. Things don't really take that much time anymore. You can grocery shop from your couch. You can Christmas shop from your couch. You can do so many things just with the push of a button. And again, all these things are amazing. Like you said, we live like kings, right? It's fantastic, but I think it's kind of undermining and teaching us to circumvent hard work. It's making it, we don't value hard work and action and just pounding the pavement quite as much. If we can take the easy way out, then we often do. I guess that would, I think that's a lot of parents, what parents are worried about, right? That my kid won't learn hard work.
Yeah. No, man, I think that's you probably hit that one on the head right on, is that yes, what did you say, teaches us to circumvent hard work? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, which, without getting into necessarily like the topic of hard work, which I think could be another one, or, drudgery, I think that's super important. I think, like you said, it causes us to take the easy way out, which may not be the most beneficial long-term way to do things.
Yeah.
And just kind of going back to I said at the beginning, like the idea of investing, right? I like that this example of delaying gratification is a good one because it's just very kind of easy to see play out. But and you hear people, or at least I've heard people be like, you have to start young when it comes to starting to invest, because it's that time element that really can be beneficial down the road, 30 years down the road, because compound interest, right?
Right.
And like I said, in business school, we taught, we studied investing and stuff like that a little bit. And you can really see it really powerfully when you see one of these graphs where it's like, here is someone who started at 24 and here's someone who started at 30, right? And it's like, you see the two graphs of the exact same amount of investment, the exact same places that they invested in, and they show a graph, and that difference of 6 years, like it was like, you're like, holy crap, like that really puts it in perspective. If anyone, just look it up if anyone wants to kind of see a good visual picture of this. I think it's a really good picture of delayed gratification, because you can be, a 26-year-old, 24-year-old who doesn't probably have as much, they're going to be making as much as they are going to be when they're 50, most likely, right? But if they can find a way to delay some of the gratification, some of the things that they enjoy doing, whatever it might be, going out, buying things. Like we talked about last week, we have such a high standard of living, right? If they can maybe delay some of these things, it really could pay off down the road. And I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars, like difference.
Yeah, see, I've always heard the phrase delayed gratification, instant gratification in like self-help or psychology circles. I had no idea that was like a thing taught in business school.
Yeah. Well, because the whole idea is based on like, we have a limited amount of resources, and so you're going to have to choose what to spend those resources on. And one of the ways you can choose to spend it is basically for the future. Because when you invest, right, and there's different thoughts on this. Like, there's people who day trade, which I would call that speculation, not investing. That's getting down a huge rabbit hole, so we're not even going to go there.
Okay.
But we're talking like long-term growth focused investments for something like retirement or, kids' colleges or whatever like that. And you have to be very disciplined with it, because one, markets are, fluctuate. So if you're constantly watching it, you're going to freak out and pull your money every time it dips. And it takes that discipline to leave it there and just stick it out, because they've shown like over the long run, like it's, even though it goes up and down, overall it is going up, And so that's kind of the basis, or the most basic principle of how to do it successfully, is just to let time be your ally and just wait it out. And it's hard because, and I've been investing, I do air quotes because it's very, very small amount since I got out of school. But I know, like, just even if it's a tiny bit, you can grow on that in the future, just being really consistent with it. And it's not it's not the easiest thing. And when I want to increase the amount, I do it kind of by a monthly basis. And when I want to increase it by $25, it's hard, because you're like, oh, that means I'm going to have to like hold back in other areas of life. And so the question becomes, well, how do you do it anyway then? How do you develop that delaying of gratification?
Totally.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's something that's not easy to change. I mean, when we talk about right at the beginning, you're like, well, there's so many different areas that we have instant gratification. That isn't necessarily bad, because if we're freeing up our time by being able to use the microwave or do a grocery shopping online, or almost all of our shopping that you want to do on Amazon or whatever, like, that's all good things. And I would tell people, like, continue to do that. But recognizing areas of your life where that doesn't help. So, hard work, being able to push through a job or a time of life that might not be so easy, and where instead of instantly gratifying yourself, you might be able to say, okay, like, let me think more long term, can be good. And because it's hard when we're surrounded so much, it, like I said earlier, bleeds into other areas of our life.
Right. We talked about living in between the scenes, right? And being present, even if you're not quite sure where you're going or what's happening, like being able to wait it out, right? I think oftentimes if instant gratification is a big part of our life, right, it can be harmful, where we're trying to gratify ourselves because we feel scared or we feel worried or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of value in time and hard work, like you were saying, and being able to push through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's just so we can give some good examples of maybe our own lives, but like what's an area that you've seen like instant gratification either have like detrimental effects or just like an area where you're like, you should delay, but it's like really hard to do so?
I mean, money, for sure. I think that's, yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
You see something you really want. I'll start over. You see something you really want, and you're like, well, I could save up for the next 6 months, and I could put away $100 every month, and I could not eat out as much. Or I have this Visa card, and that becomes tomorrow's problem, and I can just pay it off. You know, it's yeah. I definitely see it play out in that way where, yeah, maybe it's something I really want, and I don't know, like, I'm not going to necessarily debate the morality of, like, you know, credit card debt or whatever. Like, everyone has their own circumstances. But yeah, that's a way that I see it playing out, spending money that I maybe don't have right now, you know, and yeah, see it in that way. And I know I talk about fitness a lot, but you see it, but instant gratification is such a huge detriment to any fitness goals you have. Because eating healthy is not very fun, you know, compared to eating pizza and, and drinking alcohol and things like that. Like, a lot of the most gratifying things to eat or drink are, at least in larger quantities, are not very good for you. And if you want to be able to run a half marathon, or whether you want to get totally jacked for the summer, or finally get a 6-pack, or even just lose a few pounds, like, you're going to need to delay gratification in terms of food and your nutrition choices. You're like, there's no fast way around that, you know? So yeah, I mean, even just this weekend, I, you know, had a Christmas decorating party, and bought a lot of treats and had a lot of good drinks, mulled some wine, and it was great. It was really fun. But yesterday, even after the party, I had all these leftovers, and I wish I could have delayed the gratification a little bit and actually gone back on my workout plan and eaten some decent food. But I kept pigging out. Like, I kept that gratification going, you know, I kept that train going. And that was an instance where, yeah, I wish I could have, you know, and we've all had those times. I'll get back on it today. It'll be fine. But yeah, that's a way that I see it playing out in my day to day.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too that you mentioned working, like the workout world. It can be a huge detriment. But I almost see it like sought after, like instant gratification in terms of working out, sought after a ton, or like advertised that way. You know, I just started this workout routine a few weeks ago, and it's literally called, whatever the dude's name is, Shortcut to Size. And, you know, when I first saw it, I like laughed because I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, if anyone just stops for 2 seconds to think about it, they're like, there's no shortcut. Like, there's just not. Sorry. Like, it's going to take hard work. And, you know, of course they do this as like an advertising sort of a thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me how many different areas of life we seek this quick, fast, you know, get rich quick scheme, or shortcut to a beach body. Like, oh, summer's in 2 months, I think I'm going to get hot. Like, yeah, no, you're not. Like,
you're not
2
hot.
months is
You'll
not
never be hot. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
But
I'm just kidding.
like, it's just so funny to me, right? And because you see those hilarious memes about, like, I can't. There was this one. It was like this cat laying, like this really fat cat laying on its back, and it's like trying to sit up, and it like looks like it's doing crunches.
Yeah.
And basically, like I saw it going around last winter, and someone was like, the caption was like, when I realized summer is 2 months away or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Which is like, it's hilarious, but I think there's like the reason it's so funny is because there's some truth to that, and it's like, no, like it's just gonna take hard, long, grueling work. And kind of going back to our episode on not habits, what did we do it on?
Motivation?
Yes. Yes, because we talked about discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going back to that, it's like if you don't have a system that is going to teach you how to do things consistently, no matter what your limbic, right? We talk about a limbic system, no matter what your limbic system's doing. If you don't have some kind of systems in place in your life to do something like getting a hot beach body, like then you're going to work out for 2 months. Summer's going to come. You're going to not really have hit any goals probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as summer's over, you're going to go back to doing your same thing, like, and that's where then you kind of ask yourself, like, what was the point of, if you want to even call that delayed gratification, like, then what was the point? Like, if you're not going to actually delay your gratification, then there's no point in trying to delay gratification. Which goes back to what you said about money that I thought was really interesting. And I find myself doing this all the freaking time, where, like you said, like I could choose to save money and, like say like, okay, there's something I want. I'm going to put aside $20 for 3 months to buy a $60 video game. Let's use that as an example, because this is one of the ones that I find myself doing a lot. And instead I just say, well, no, why don't I just buy it now? And then for the next 3 months, I'll just like cut back on eating out or whatever. And it's like that, we know that that's not going to happen. Like you can't really like make the decision now. Right. And then try to delay gratification afterwards. Like we don't work that way. And so again, like almost like what's the point, right? If I'm not going to do it right, if you're not going to make the lifestyle change, because I think a lot of these things you need some kind of lifestyle change. Like I said, saving up, whether it's cutting back on eating out, going out with friends, spending money on, unnecessary things like drinks or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm terrible at it in a few different ways. There's like some areas that I think I'm good at it, and there's other areas that's just like, man, it's so hard. Like this Black Friday was so hard. I was successful, luckily, in just like hitting the brakes on the spending, but boy was it hard. And I don't know when we're going to get into maybe things that we think can help, but
yeah, probably soon we should.
So I think that one of the things that can help is having kind of a future goal in mind, right? Especially when we're talking about a lot of, and this is maybe more with just like the money specific topic, but like you talk about saving, right? If it's either specifically saving for something you want to do in a few months or a year or two, or whether it's saving for something like investing, like that really, really long-term goal of, retirement or college fund for kids or whatever. One of the things that can help is just remembering that goal, having that long-term outlook, which is again why goals is so important, because it helps you keep on track. It helps you make good decisions to accomplish goals. And this is again another reason why I think going back to last week's gratitude can be so important, because like I think I said in that episode, gratitude helps you save money or spend less money, I think is what I said, because you're not always looking for the new shiny. And I think that can have a play in if there's something you're trying to be to delay your gratification and to not have so much instant gratification. A way that can help is to have a goal and to like be grateful for where you're at. Those are two things I think can really help. And I just think that can be a good one. An example, a personal example is I'm getting married in April, and
Heck yeah, you are.
The honeymoon is then. That's 4 months away. So like whenever I've thought like, oh, like this is the one for Black Friday, like, man, there was like this TV that was on really good sale. I was like, oh, that'd be awesome to have. And I just had to be like, no, like you can't, because in 4 months you're gonna have to spend money on uh not have to, but get to spend money
Yeah.
on a honeymoon, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be great. But if you want it to be great, you're gonna have to
You're gonna
stop
have to
now
make a
so that it
sacrifice.
can be great
Yeah.
and not have to go into like credit card debt or something. And I think that's can be a powerful thing to keep you making those correct decisions, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I found a few steps as well for learning how to delay gratification. And I feel like a lot of these are callbacks to some of the stuff that we've been talking about already, which is kind of cool. Figure out what your reasons are. If you want to stop smoking, you're going to need to know what your reasons are to stop smoking. Or I'm kind of running into this one with my fitness. Like, what are my reasons for wanting to be in shape? I've just kind of, it's kind of it's good to have these goals, but what's the motivation behind it? Because when it gets tough, you're gonna that cognitive side of your brain is gonna ask, wait, I'm holding your limbic system at bay, but why am I doing that again? Like, can you remind me? It helps to be able to say, I'm doing this because this. I'm not buying this TV because I want to have an awesome honeymoon with my future wife.
Right.
And when you have that reason, when you can hold on to that reason, it's like, oh, okay, well, in that case, I'm okay to do the hard work, or I'm okay to make the sacrifice.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And another thing was figuring out what your obstacles are. Just what's standing in my way, figuring out what your boundaries are going to be. I heard this, it's this awesome phrase that this guy used in this video. He said, what's allowed in my future life? I like that. Just being able to say, okay, am I allowed to, am I going to allow myself to go out drinking, one night? Or am I allowed to go out and pig out on a $45 meal? And if so, how often? And will I allow myself to eat out? And if so, what am I allowed to have? Things like that, because everyone's different. We're different from each other. Your fitness goals are going to look different from mine. But being able to set your boundaries and figuring out what's going to be best for you ahead of time is going to help you. Again, it's more reasons to hold on to when you need to delay gratification.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And going back to the obstacles one really quick, the reason I think that's an important, helpful step to take is so that you're not blindsided by these obstacles and don't have a potential game plan for how to deal with them. So when you say, oh, I'm trying to eat healthy, and I know one of my obstacles is going to be that I'm going to have cravings for that juicy hamburger or whatever. How am I going to handle that? In the moment, what am I going to do? Am I going to distract myself? Am I going to focus on something else? Am I going to just grit my teeth and say no? What is, like you said, you're all different, so things will work for other people. Or will I deal with it by saying, no, I get to have, this burger once every so often at this time, and that's when I do it, and that's what I can be like, that's how will help me say no, because I know in a week I will get to say yes, or something like that, right? But I think that's why the obstacles one can be very helpful.
Yeah.
To think about prior. So.
Totally. And there are a few others. One that I really liked was remove temptation. Kind of goes along with obstacles, but yeah, learn what your temptations are, what your triggers are. For me, when I'll go back to the marathon thing. When I was going to run a half marathon, I figured out that, okay, certain foods really don't help. You'll be 10 kilometers into a run and you will feel it, and I found out that drinking alcohol, same deal. So I knew that both alcohol and certain foods, you can guess what types of foods, Snickers and candy, cookies, heavy foods like that, they weren't good. So I kind of knew that those two things were going to be detriment to my goals. I knew that I couldn't have them. But I learned that if I have alcohol in the house, it's not that big of a deal for me. Like, I can keep myself from drinking just by saying, nope, I'm good. Food, completely different story. If it's in the house, I will eat it. I will demolish it. Like, it's going to happen. And it's very helpful to know that now, because when I'm at the grocery store, I know, or if someone says, oh, hey, Brendan, there's a cake in the break room, take a few slices home. I know that if that gets into my house, it will be demolished tomorrow. And realizing the distinction between those two things has been helpful, because you just don't buy them now.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's a good one to think about. Because you're just, and that really, right, is just going back to like just setting yourself up for success rather than for failure, right? When you think about it, it's like in, business or other areas of life, like if you're like, I'm trying to accomplish this goal, well, like, no, duh, I'm not going to let this be a potential problem, or I'm going to do things that set me up for success. And that's kind of what that's saying, right? With the temptation thing, you're just trying to create an environment where you can succeed in whatever that goal is. I had something I was going to say that you mentioned. Oh, and when we're talking about instant gratification and delayed gratification and developing some of that, one thing I do want to say too is that you have to, again, we say this a lot, but like everybody's different, like, and it's what is going to, right, going back to like kind of our big picture, right, what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people create, take self-control over their lives to create something that they are proud of, that they feel fulfilled in, that they enjoy, and that's theirs, that they own, right? Which again kind of goes to that hard work thing, which I would love to do an episode on hard work, because I think when you work for something hard and you achieve it, that is, there's nothing else like that, nothing else. And I think that delayed gratification can be a huge thing in that. Super quick example would be my car in college broke down, and I didn't want to just spend the money to go fix it. Would have been really quick, fast, back on the road. Instead, I decided to do the terrible idea of fixing it myself, which was actually a great idea, because after 4 days spent under my car, like swearing and cussing, because I'd never worked on a car prior, never done any, they had no idea what I was doing, like it was terrible. But then the moment I turned that key and it started up, I cannot tell you, like, the number one example in my life of like where just hard work, which I think had to have an element of delayed gratification, was one of the greatest things ever. So anyway, but one of the things to realize or to note is like we're not necessarily saying like you just need to like live like a hermit and like never spend any money, and then you might wake up one day a millionaire because you did that, but is that what you want? Is that overall, like I remember talking with my dad once. He had a friend who was like huge into the stock market and investing, and he spent like all of his time, it was like his hobby basically, just like he would just lived in this world. And my dad said he would not spend money on anything. Like he was just very, very, very frugal. And this guy's like a millionaire, but it's one of those things where my dad said though, he's like, but that just sounds horrible to me. Like, I don't want a life where I'm just like denying myself everything all the time for being a millionaire, right? That's not going to be everyone's goal. And so what is a balanced, full life, but yet a life that you can be proud of in the future? And I think that's kind of also a key thing to note. We're not just saying everyone in our generation needs to be a miser. We're just saying we need to be more wise about it. We need to be more cognizant about how we're interacting with our limbic system. Are we just giving into every single want and need and impulse that we have throughout our lives? Or are we taking into account, where is this going to lead me down the road? How do I create a life that I can be proud of, that's going to be fulfilling? That might require some delayed gratification. It might not.
That's great.
And then just having that wisdom and intentionality in our thinking throughout our days, and not just letting our circumstances and our feelings and our emotions dictate where we go in life. And I think that's kind of that would be my reason for why this is important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Living a life where like you said, we're not dictated by all these wants, immediately sort of thing, but we actually dig deep and what do we want, and what can we indulge in, what can we enjoy?
Because those things are, again, they're great.
They're great. Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
And they can be awesome, but like, there's also times where we can reel it in though. Mm-hmm. And I know I see that in my life a lot.
Yeah.
But
same. Yeah, big topic. Thanks for delving into it with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. And I know we didn't get like necessarily too technical or whatever, but so if people have other things to add, again, we'll always say this, but if you have things to add, let us know. If there's areas that you'd like to hear more detail, or be like, I don't appreciate that you guys didn't have as much research, like, let us know. Maybe we'll go out and find some more stuff on this. I know all of these conversations are good for me because they make me want to kick myself in the butt and improve in so many ways. And it's like, okay, now I got to go out and do it. Yeah, so
same.
If people are out there doing it, let us know so that I can be motivated and helped and encouraged. And then if there's ways that we can do that for you guys too, let us know, because that's what we're trying to create. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. This week we need inspiration, and I think it's my turn.
It is.
And I'm not prepared.
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. No, I do have one.
Okay.
And this is an example of me failing at the very thing that we just talked about. Maybe not delayed gratification, but failing at our previous episodes where we say just do it. But yesterday, I woke up and it was like, man, today's the day to work out. This is one of my workout days. And boy, was I not feeling it. So I'm getting up, eating some breakfast, listening to some podcasts as I usually do. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to the gym today. And then I can't even remember what podcast it was or what they were talking about, but they mentioned this guy who was born without, like, basically like arms cut off at like the elbow and legs kind of like halfway up the thigh. So he had no limbs. And he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh my word.
And people die trying to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, just to kind of put that into some perspective there. And he did it, and he army crawled the entire way.
Oh my word.
And I remember listening to that and just being like, well, I guess I'm going to the gym today.
No
and then like an hour later, I still convinced myself not to go to the gym. But however, I need to I'll look up this guy's name and I'll find a link that I'll put in the show notes page, because talk about inspiring.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think I freaking love stuff like that. Like people who like just, you're just like, what? I was mountain biking once, long time ago. I think it was with my dad, and we're like struggling up this hill, like, it's hard. And this dude just kind of like just comes right past us. He had one leg.
What?
And yes,
What?
He was mountain biking with one leg, and he's kicking our butt up this thing.
Oh my God.
Just goes. And I'm like,
What?
Talk about having no excuses. So maybe I'll link to a couple of videos like that, but I love that kind of stuff where you're just like, these people who have these obstacles, like these, mountain climbers who lost a leg or don't have an arm or something. And you're just like, despite all that, you still find a way to press on and like accomplish these crazy things that even people without that handicap don't do. That's amazing. And it really makes you say, like, I have no excuse not to, whatever the goal is, no matter how far reaching, whatever the dream is, like, why the heck am I not pursuing this? Because I have every advantage I could ever want for it, because people who don't have these advantages do it. And so that kind of stuff really is inspiring. And so I'll find a link to that. I'll find his name and we'll post some things like that. So I love that stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So cool. Well,
thanks for chatting, man.
14
in the books.
Go check it out, reallyreallybadly.com/episode 14. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you next time.
It's been fun.
Can you hear me, Travis? I'm calling
Skype preferences.
to you now. I can hear you.
There we go.
So
Okay.
well.
Okay, I'm
But
good.
can you hear me too?
I can hear you.
Hooray!
Why?
Hooray! Hooray!
Except now you're super loud. What happened to my settings?
Why am I so loud now?
Okay.
And why
Try
are
just
you
talking for a
so
second.
soft? Hello?
Do it again.
Hello?
Okay. There we go.
I think we need a yoga session after that.
Good grief, yeah. Now we do.